What's happening, YouTube? It's Simon 466 Cards, and today we're going to talk about the thing that nobody wants to talk about in the hobby, and that is the impact of the Trump administration's policies and decisions on the sports cards market. And I say that nobody seems to want to talk about it because I haven't seen much, if any, content or discussion around this. And I think I understand why. People are in the hobby because they use sports cards as an escape from everyday life. Like, this is what they do for fun, and they don't want to bring politics into that. And I understand that approach, right? Like, this is the thing that I do for fun, and bring politics into it makes things a lot more serious. But the other side of that is that we also really care about the value of our sports cards. And the decisions that are being made by the Trump administration definitely impacts the values of sports cards, whether it's the economic impact, the economic policies, and also the impact on things like exchange rates, right? Those things matter. And so if you're trying to make card decisions, you want to have all of the financial information available to you. And if we stick our head in the sand and pretend like these things aren't happening from the US government, well, then we're not going to be able to make the best decisions possible because we're not using all the information. So the approach I'm going to use is to try and stay as apolitical as possible. I am going to focus on just the facts of the policies and decisions being made and the economic impact of that. I'm not going to debate whether or not this is the right decision or the wrong decision, this is a good decision or the bad decision. That's where, political arguments and debates go off the rails. I'm not here to do that. I'm just here to say the Trump administration is doing X, and as a result, the result is going to be Y, and that is the formula or the approach that I'm going to use. So someone's got to talk about it. Might as well be me. And if you don't want to talk or hear me talk about that kind of stuff, that's totally fine. Feel free to skip to the next video. But the thing I want to talk about today is tariffs. I live in Canada, and as you can see on your screen, the Trump administration is imposing tariffs on Canada. And basically, Canadian companies are scrambling to figure out how to deal with these proposed Trump tariffs. The thing is, what I'm showing you on the screen, this is an article from the Financial Post, which is one of our key financial newspapers and websites in Canada. This is responding to Trump tariffs. What I'm showing you on the screen is the proposed Trump tariffs. But these two things are not the same thing, because you will see this is from the White House website from February 1st, 2025. This article is from February 28th, 2025, because the proposed tariffs from February 1st were postponed by President Trump a couple days after this. But he then said later on that there will be tariffs coming in on March 4th and also some in April. So they just punted it and delayed it down the road. And this has had a huge impact on the exchange rate. And that is the thing I want to talk about. Because if you go to just USD to Canadian dollar on Google and you look under the news tab here, you can see Canadian dollar sinks, this jumps, suppresses the loonie. The loonie is another name for the Canadian dollar. The Canadian USD exchange rate flattens. Is a good time to buy? This jumps. Canadian dollar gets hit under pressure. So you can see all of these decisions are impacting and making the exchange rate between the US dollar and the Canadian dollar fluctuate quite a bit. And if we look at the 6 months chart, I am on Yahoo Finance. I find their charts to be the best. If that means something to you and you like finance stuff, the Yahoo Finance weirdly has the best charts. I'm showing you a 6 month trend of how many dollars or how many Canadian dollars you can buy with one American dollar. So as this line goes up, like it does here, that means the Canadian or the US dollar is getting stronger and the Canadian dollar is getting weaker. So you can see here in the bottom left corner here, this is from September, and $1 could buy you 1.35 Canadian dollars. But right now, $1 can now buy you basically $1.44 of Canadian dollars. So it's gone from $1 is worth 135 to $1 is worth 144, which is an increase of about 7%. And you can see this has been a pretty steady rise, but there are a couple of notable data points. One you see right here is it peaked right around January 30th, 31st, which is right around the time that the first proposed tariffs were supposed to hit Canada. But then they went away. And so the exchange rate went back down because I'm not going to get into it, but things like tariffs will benefit the US dollar and hurt the Canadian dollar. Just take my word for it. But then there is now a next round of possible tariffs being put into place on March the 4th. And so I'm recording this video in the early hours of March the 2nd. You can see the last data point here is of February 27th. It is now at 144. And that's because of the expectation that there might be tariffs coming into play in a few days here. Right now, if we get a real-time look here, it's worth 145 as of March the 2nd. And so the other data point that's interesting to me is the election, November 5th, 2024. And if we go here it is. This is November 5th, 2024. You can see since election day, it's been a pretty straight upwards rise, peaking when the tariffs were supposed to come into place. They were delayed, and now they're moving back up. And who knows whether or not they're going to be delayed again or if they'll actually hit in the next few days here in March. Now, you might be asking, Simon, what does this have to do with sports card values? How can I benefit from this information? And the answer is pretty straightforward. And I should also note that I had made a previous video talking about very similar things. I will link to it in the description below. This was from 3 months ago. Well, you can benefit from a strong American dollar and a weak Canadian dollar pretty easily. And that's by going to Canada and buying cards from Canadians, because the value of the US dollar has increased by roughly 6 or 7% in the last 6 months, and a good amount even since election day. And so if you go to something like the Toronto Sport Card Expo, your dollar goes further now than it did 6 months ago. Your dollar is worth more, and Canadians will happily take your US dollars or your Canadian dollars if you exchange it, because you'll be able to get more bang for your buck. And this isn't just about sports cards, because if you are a sports card dealer or you just like going to shows, that means travel will be cheaper. That means hotels will be cheaper when you're there. That means food will be cheaper when you're there. And so if you are American, and I believe a good chunk of my viewers are, that is one way to benefit from a stronger US dollar. The other thing you can do, in addition to going to the Sport Card Expo in Toronto in late April, you can see April 24th to 27th, the other thing you can do is join some Canadian sports card Facebook groups that exist and just say, I'll pay you with PayPal USD, and see what they say. Because I bet you they're like, absolutely, that sounds great, because they can then just convert it on there into Canadian dollars. And again, it might be the exact same thing, where they're like, oh, cool, I bought this card for, let's say, $500 US, and I can sell it for $500 US. Well, the thing is, they just gained 7% on that purchase, even if the card didn't change in value, because of the exchange rate improvement, I guess improvement on the US dollar side, but devaluation on the Canadian dollar side. And so they might just say like, oh, I bought it for $500, I can sell it for $500, but I make 7% just from the exchange rate. Absolutely, sounds great. And so you might find some more amenable deals for you if you are an American an American, and if you go poke around in some Canadian card Facebook groups. So those are a couple of ideas as to how this might impact you, and who knows how much further this line goes up. The Trump administration is clearly doing things their own way, and like I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you whether that's good or bad. I'm just going to here to tell you it's fairly obvious that they are taking things and doing things differently. And so if they do more of the same, I would not be surprised if this line goes even further higher and to the right in the coming weeks, months, and even possibly years. And so it's something to keep an eye on, because it will have an impact on the sports card market. And I will link to this video that I made previously below. I think everything from that video still holds, and there might be some additional ideas for you as to how you might be able to benefit from these decisions being made by the US government and by the Trump administration. Would love to hear your thoughts on this one. Thank you as always for listening and watching. I'll talk to you all soon. Cheers.